So in 2009, you wrote a book called Magical Meatless Meals. This cookbook is awesome, Wayne. Tell us about it, and I'll tell you some of my favorite parts.
Well, thank you. I've been a vegetarian slash pescatarian, and that's a vegetarian that eats seafood for the last 48 years. And I did that for health reasons. I was encouraged to not eat meat. So I had the idea for years, and I always liked the name Magical Meatless Meals. So I'm not a master chef, but I consider myself a master magician. But because I've traveled so much around the world and, doing corporate stuff, so my clients would take me out. So I've been to some of the nicest restaurants around. And I realized if I could get these recipes from these chefs, maybe I'd have something. And then what really solidified it is I was doing a big show for a big computer company. I think it was NCR, where they had rented either Disney World or I think it was MGM Studios in Florida for the whole night for all of their prospects and clients. So I was there and I was having dinner in the old Brown Derby, the recreation of the Brown Derby restaurant, which was a famous Hollywood restaurant where all the stars, came in the 30s and 40s. So I'm sitting in there and I'm like, wow, if I could somehow, get the feeling in this book of all the classy, old Hollywood and everything and magic and all this, I would try to do this. Plus, with the internet, if I could just get a hold of these chefs, they could email me the recipes. I'd cut and paste them and the book would be done. Well, it wasn't that easy, believe me. But the concept was, and I also had a wonderful illustrator who was a magician. His name is escaping me right now. But he did all the illustrations in there. Plus, the book there are 5 chapters: appetizers, soups, salads, main courses, and desserts. And at the end of each chapter, there are 5 magic tricks that you can perform at the dinner table.
It's illustrated by Marshall Filial.
Yes, and Marshall did he do a wonderful job or not?
Dude, it's great. It really is good.
Just a great job. Well, Marshall, I was so lucky that I had kept his information that I'd seen in a Tops magazine years and years ago. So Marshall did that, and then the other thing that I wanted it to be was I wanted to be able to tell all kinds of funny stories and anecdotes about show business personalities, magicians, whatever, and all of them fit in there. I mean, I'll give you an example. I discovered that Sammy Davis Jr. was an amateur magician, and a lot of people don't know that Sammy Davis Jr. was also a very brilliant man. He was a really smart guy, and whatever he did, he picked up very quickly. So the story I tell in there after describing this and this is referencing a recipe that was very quick to make. It was easy to make, and that you would pick up on it quickly. And the story was that Sammy Davis was with, not Dean Martin, but one of the other Rat Packs, Joey Bishop. He was with Joey Bishop, and they're driving in Vegas in Sammy Davis Jr.'s convertible. And Sammy Davis was also famous for driving too fast. So he's pulled over by a state trooper. State trooper comes over and says, "I need to see your license and registration." And Joey Bishop, sitting in the passenger seat, says, "Officer," he says, "do you know who this is?" And the officer says, "Yes, I do. It's Sammy Davis Jr." So Joey Bishop says, "Well, officer," he says, "do you know that Mr. Davis only has one eye?" And he says, "Yes, I do know that." He says, Joey Bishop says, well, let me ask you, would you like him to have that one eye on the speedometer or the road?
That's great.
So it's a great story. It's a fun story. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with magic. I was able to blend it in, if you will. But the book is filled with that. And I have to tell you that through the years, I did cooking shows all over the country. And sometimes I'd be at a cooking show for 3 days, just like a trade show promoting the book. And people would get the book and they would come back to the show the next day and they would say, "Man, I read your book last night and it has some of the funniest stories." And they're just stories like that about me, other magicians. And anyway, the book sold out. I did real well with it, and I was very pleased with it. And I was the first magician to ever write a cookbook, and I, to this day, am very proud of it.